have an error on line 49 that's a null reference exception. Let's check that out. Line 49. So this is our character name text. The character name text is part of what thing? If we look under HUD panel, it is part of the HUD panel. So we must be turning off the HUD panel before we do this line of code. And we are. That is the code that we just added that's giving us problems. So we probably want to turn all of these things off, but we probably want to make sure we set all our properties first. So I'm going to take these 3 lines of code that turn off things in my hierarchy and move them to the bottom of the start method. Take the hide load panel, cut it out, and put it at the very bottom. Take the hide water panel, cut it out, put it at the bottom of my start method, and take the hide HUD panel, cut it out, and put it at the bottom of my start method. Fix some spacing in here. Perfect. We set their values here. We go ahead and set other reference properties that are children of those panels, and then after we've set all of our properties, we can turn them off. I'll save this, go back to Unity, stop the game, and clear my console. If I press run now, I have no errors, and I can see the start button immediately, which is great. If I press start, my scene 01 should load, but it doesn't. I'm getting an error that I have to address. It's saying on line 18 of my start button behavior, we have an issue. Let's go to that script. On line 18, this gc.showLoadPanel is a problem. GC must not have a value yet, and it doesn't. I'm surprised I didn't do that. I should have done that up in the start method. I created the variable, but I did not give it a value. So I'm going to now gc equals GameObject.find. We're looking for the game controller game object, and then from that we're getting the component of type game controller, which is the game controller script that's attached to it. And now we've set that variable. Let me save this, come back to Unity, go ahead and stop the game and clear my console, and try running it again. Okay, if I press start now, the scene loads. I did get some errors though. The first error says that the variable load panel of load scene has not been assigned. It goes on to say you probably need to assign the load panel variable of the load scene script in the inspector. So we need to find the load scene script in the inspector. Do we have the load scene script attached to anything in the splash scene? I don't think so. I think the only loading code we have is in the start button behavior script. So did the error occur when I pressed the button? Or did it occur as the new scene loaded? My guess is the latter, which means this splash scene might be working just fine, and the error is in scene 01 just as it loads. Before we worry about scene 01, we had better test the game settings functionality in this scene. Let's press escape and stop the game. When we press play again, and then press escape, we do see the settings canvas appears, but the title panel is still showing and we have one error. Which issue should we tackle first? Let's start with the error. It is another null reference exception, this time on line 170 of the game controller script. Going to the script and looking at line 170, it looks like the same issue with the FPS controller as before. Again, we add the if FPS controller is not null condition before the command. Save and play the game again. When we press escape, no errors. Now let's hide the canvas that contains the title panel when the game is paused. First, let's give the canvas a more meaningful name of title canvas. When there was only one canvas, the name was not so important. But with several canvases, more meaningful names become necessary for clarity. In the game controller script, let's look at the pause and unpause methods that are called when the escape key is pressed. You see, these are the methods in which we are turning on and off various game objects when the game is paused and unpaused. So we just do the same for the title canvas. Back to the top of the code, let's create a private property of type GameObject and name it TitleCanvas. In the start method, let's give the title canvas a value so it refers to the game object with the name of title canvas. Back down to the pause method, When the game is paused, we want to hide the title canvas. Let's just copy this line of code that turns off the game canvas, paste it, and change it to also turn off the title canvas. To avoid a null reference exception, when this code runs within scenes that do not have a title canvas, add if title canvas is not null as a condition before the command. Let's copy this line of code and paste it inside the unpause method. And change the parameter to true so the title canvas will reappear when the game is unpaused. Save, play the game, and press escape. Nice. If I click on the audio button, very good. If I change the volume of the background audio slider, there's some more errors for us. Another null reference exception, this time on line 128. I'll stop the game. Double click this and look at line 128. It looks like it is the FPS controller not having a value again. We can add the if FPS controller is not null condition before the command. At the bottom of the method there is another reference to the FPS controller, so let's copy and paste that condition in front of this command as well. Save again, play the game, press escape and go to the audio settings. Now I can change the sliders with no errors. Toggling the checkboxes also works smoothly. Back to the character settings. I'm able to change the name with no error. If I click Return to Game, I'm back to the title panel. And when I press Start, I see the load panel for a moment before the new scene is loaded. I believe the errors here relate to the newly loaded scene, so our splash screen is complete.